All right, welcome back to Extraordinary Unlocked. Really excited to have Kate Kenney joining us here today. Kate has got a wild career story from beginning to end. And the moment I heard it, I said, Kate, you've got to be on the podcast and share these stories because many people that started where your career started do not end up where you're ending up right now or continue to work as. So, really excited to have Kate join us. Kate, would you mind introducing yourself to the extraordinaires?
Hi, I'm Kate Kenney. I'm so excited. I love your personality and I can't wait to be here.
All right, excellent. So, Kate, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where are you based on? What are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm based out of Rochester, New York. I've got two kids and a husband, a daughter that's graduating, a son that's going into ninth grade. I today am a partner in a wealth management firm called RDG Capital Management. And I also just started my own consulting slash search business called Path Advisory LLC.
Amazing, a woman of many, many talents. So, the first question I always start with: what was the first job you ever had?
So this was a very funny job. I lived in town called Greece, New York, outside of Rochester growing up. And there was a restaurant down the street called Omega Restaurant. And I was a hostess. So my job was and I was 15 years old when I started working. And my job was to help people get seated to tables. And it was very interesting because they only spoke Greek. And then it's always felt like they were yelling behind my back. I don't know whether I was, very good at that or not, but it was short lived. And then, I think after that, I went to work at JCPenney's.
Okay, I love that. You know what's so crazy is that growing up, there was a restaurant in Niles, Illinois called Omega Restaurant, and anyone in the northern suburbs of Chicago go there because 24/7 it is Greek owned. So it's so funny that you say I used to work at Omega and there's a large Greek population in Chicago. So there's so many Greek restaurants here. But that's very funny that you bring that up. Awesome.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Excellent. So now we want to go from all right, you go to college, you do your thing, you majored in what did you major in college?
So very funny story too. So I majored in accounting and I went to a state university here called Oswego. And honestly, I only picked it because I was good at it and nobody else seemed to be. So I thought it has to be worth something. Originally, I was finance, but I ended up doing accounting. A lot of my friends were failing. I had an A, so I said, "Well, let's try this." I found a great study group that really helped me get through in a very challenging time. But that was my degree. So I wouldn't even say I had a passion for it. I would just say that I was good at it. So I thought, well, I got to mean something.
That's so interesting. So you're good at accounting, you finish with that degree, and then what happens next?
So after that, this is, I went to a state school and knowing things now, what I know in my professional career, I might drive my kids to do different things. So going to a state school, we had organizations come in and interview us. I was a very social girl. So I would tell you that although I had great grades in accounting, my other grades were not great. So I was probably not one of the top candidates coming out that were looking for 4.0 GPAs to work in Big Four public accounting. Looking back, I probably should have gone public accounting. I think I would have done very well there, but I was not a top choice and didn't even know that what I had to do to be a top choice as well. I didn't really have any internships. I would come home, I would work during the summers and save money and, was a pretty normal kid compared to what these kids are doing today. So I got a job. I came home, I got a job. And this is where I laughed too, because I was like, "Okay, I need a job now." My parents worked very hard, blue collar family, worked really hard to put me through college. I had student loans, for my last couple of years. And I thought, okay, I got to get some return on this investment. This is what I have to do. So I started interviewing for jobs and I actually had an interview with a wealth management firm that had me take a test to see how I would do in wealth management, and I scored, like, out of the park, and I laughed because they kept calling me. My mom's like, "They keep calling you." We didn't have cell phones back then, they just called our house. She goes, "They keep calling you, they want you to come work there." And I was like "Why would anyone wanna give their money to me? I'm 22 years old, like, why would anyone wanna do this?" So I turned them down. I did eventually call them back and turn them down. Again, what would I know now? And I got a job in accounting. Now, thank God I did because I do think I use that accounting every day. I worked for a company called Logical Operations at the time, which is now went through many purchases and now part of Skillsoft, if you're familiar with e-learning. So got a job there as an inventory clerk. And my job was to calculate the purchase price variance, look at the standard cost, do cycle counts. And we had a book, we manufactured books, but we did e-learning. So that was my first job out of college. I was there for 9 years. It was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. But
Really?
I really got exposed to so many different things. We tried to go public. We got bought by private equity. We got bought by larger companies. So we ran Oracle, and it was small enough that I got to do everything. If there was an opportunity to improve something, I was given it, and they were like, "Go for it." I get to work with really very, very smart people while I was there, and we all have great relationships still to this day being there. So I was there for about 9 years. So
That's unbelievable because the topics you just brought up, what you're in charge of, I'm gonna be really candid, that doesn't feel inspiring to me at all. Did you actually enjoy the work or you enjoyed the progression of your development?
I would say I like learning.
Okay.
The energy. We worked really hard, as you can imagine. And when you're in accounting, you work a lot of hours. So I was single, so I would work till midnight every night, and we would be working towards this goal. And then eventually I'd laugh, we'd all be in tears, by Friday at noon. Um, I got to do a lot of different things, which looking back on my career, this is so helpful because I'm at this point now. But, you know, I'm a person that likes to be learning and evolving and getting better and working with smart people and that are motivated and have a lot of energy. That really brings me joy. So I would think, did I like doing a bank rep? Absolutely not. But did I like analyzing the business and working with private equity and like working with people that I didn't work with before? Yes. So I would say you probably don't want me doing your bank reconciliations, although I've had to do them recently and I've gotten quite good at them. But if you want me to analyze your business and say what's growing and what's not growing and help me understand why it's not growing, and that would be something that, I've probably taken that and led that through my career.
That's tremendous because you were only in your early 20s starting to do and getting exposure to so many things. So you said you stayed there about 9 years, so that means around 31, 30s, you made a transition, and what happened next?
So it's so funny. The only reason why I left is I was put between the CFO. There was a vice president put between the CFO and myself. Great guy, nice guy, but I knew he wasn't going anywhere. And so I'm 31, I'm not going to be CFO anytime soon. Maybe I need to get some additional experience. And we probably got to a point where we were just like steady and not growing as much as we were before. I went and got a job at a company called Alstom Signaling, which was a huge French-owned company, railway systems. What was inspiring to me about it was that we use IFRS accounting. I didn't have that, and we use SAP. I had a lot of Oracle experience, and I was very technology driven, but I didn't have SAP. So I thought this will be a great job for me. I'm going to learn. It was a terrible, terrible choice. I laughed because my first day of work, it was a Friday, your first day and you're like sitting there and everyone kept giving me flowers and asking if I was going to stay. And I was like, why wouldn't I stay? I just, left my job. And I looked around and it was 5:30 and it was a Friday. And 5:30, when you're an accountant on Fridays, you're out, you work your hours during the week. And I was like, no one even looks remotely like they're getting up from their desk.
Really?
And I'm like, this seems odd. And so I was like, so finally I asked my boss, I'm like, "I have a hair appointment. Can I leave?" Because I did have a hair appointment. So I'm like, "Can I get out of here?" And so I left. And so for the next 9 months though, and I was getting married at the time, I was engaged. My poor husband thought he was marrying a CFO someday. I was like, I hate my job. I'm miserable. I would go to Del Monte, the spa, and spend so much money. They give me a wedding gift because I was there so much. It was the only thing that made me happy. And I would work every night till 9 o'clock. And it was like just what you did. And they would tell you don't make plans when you work here. And it wasn't because, I'm a social girl, right? We talked about this from earlier. But it wasn't because we were trying to achieve something or we were trying to sell or we were trying to grow. It was their processes were so poor. And I would say that they didn't. And then, I had the opportunity to make them better, but nobody wanted to. It was a very difficult culture. I had a choice to make. What do you do? Do you stay there and just be miserable or do you and I wasn't really even making more money. I mean, I was making about the same. So I just didn't know what to do. I was beside myself. So I got married during that time and then I made a change shortly thereafter. I had a friend that worked in recruiting and staffing and she was an accountant too and she sounded so happy and I just wanted to be happy. And so there was an opening and I interviewed for it and got the job. Now, you laugh because my husband did not want me to take the job. He was like, "No, no, like this, you're going to work in sales." I don't, and I was like, at least I'll be able to find myself a new job if it doesn't work out. Was what I thought. And I said, so why wouldn't I just try it? We did not speak for 2 weeks. He finally was okay, fine, just do it. I took a $20,000 pay cut and started working at a job. And that's really what set me off in my career is I learned how to do business development. I had a great manager. His name was Tim O'Brien. He was like, don't talk, be quiet, ask lots of questions and the deals will come. And so, I started that out. I think within 6 months I had doubled my income. And then I went through a lot there. So we started an accounting and finance practice there, where all I did was I basically this is before you had good systems. I would have a Excel document where I would read all the people at PwC and I would call them one after the other and see if they wanted a job or see if I could take them to lunch. And then I eventually would get somebody and then I would place them at a company. So that was really what my niche was and my approach. Fast forward, I had 2 kids while I was there, but I never took a maternity leave. And this is why and you worked on a draw. So if you took maternity leave, your clients would go to somebody else
Right.
or you would, your business was shut down for the day. So again, I think back to like entrepreneurial, it was a very entrepreneurial job and not woe is me. I mean, I, probably could have and just rebuilt it, but I liked my job. So I would take my babies, I would work from home and my babies would sit on my chest and I would be on the phone all day. And I laugh because my kids both talk all the time. I think that's because they were new and do that. So I did that, and then the market crashed in 2008, if you remember that, the technology
Yes.
market crash,
Yeah.
which is going to happen now. I guess there's all these layoffs right now, but, I so I and my accounting there was no accounting jobs, and I worked on a draw, so I'm like, "How am I gonna make money? What am I gonna do?" And, of course, my husband and I had just moved into our first, like, real big house, and we're like, "Oh, if we're used to making money." I reinvented myself and moved into IT.
Whoa,
So
whoa, whoa, hold on. So okay. Okay, Kate, I just gotta pause you here because there's so many things that just happened, and you just said it about. I just gotta add. Okay, so you go from accounting in the books, and then you move into talent acquisition. Is that correct? Like a recruiting job,
yes, that
and
was a recruiting job, yes.
it was a recruiting job and business development, and you're able to double your income, and you had never done it before. Like this is something so brand new. And what I'm gonna call out, you call yourself this social girl, and you were able to leverage that superpower you've got. And
Yeah.
then you were literally cold calling people from PwC and say, "Can I take you to lunch? Can you get on a call?" And really recruiting and being able to land them in other places. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's phenomenal, and then you have babies, you're talking, you're still working, and I love the passion behind it because it wasn't necessarily like, "Well, I'm trying to sacrifice something." You're like, "I wanna do both, and I'm gonna do both," and it sounds like it just continued on, and now you make a pivot as the
Start
market
selling OT.
reinventing yourself, 0 fear, and I didn't hear any fear, it's like, "Well,
No,
hit the reset button and go into IT." Tell us about that jump because
I feel really good about myself.
that is actually very unusual. Very, very
Yeah,
most people find a niche and they drive that thing until they hit 65 and like, "I've burned it out, I'm done, and I'm never touching it again." But you've been able to jump from moving ship to moving ship and be, like, very
I could
successful.
do
So tell us about the IT part.
Yeah, so it was funny, we were an IT company, so it was fairly easy to do, and I was good at business development, so my boss was like, "Go for it." And this is actually another valuable lesson I learned that I did that is but because I had had the experience at LMK and Skillsoft, I knew technology. I knew what a developer was. I knew what a help desk person was. I knew what a so I knew how it worked because I did their budgets for years. So it wasn't as scary as one might think, and I also was very comfortable working at the executive level because my experience there. So I was very comfortable talking to a CIO because I supported them on the finance side. So I moved into, so of course I'm making it sound easier than it probably was, but I was like, but I was comfortable. So the funny thing is, valuable lesson, I started because I loved selling consulting and I loved really understanding problems that CIOs were having and coming up with ways to solve it. I loved that part of it. And again, learning energy and, we would solve it through staffing or we had a consulting division that did help desk or project work as well. And I was successful at it. The problem was they didn't pay well on consulting. So as much as it was fun for me, I wasn't making as much money on the consulting side. So I had to, learn that I had to also focus on staffing. So, what I would do is take help desk people and put them on billing. Maybe not as fun, but, was more, it paid the bills. So, started to grow my business there. And I was there for a total of, I think I was there for 6 years and was called by two guys that had just started an accounting and finance staffing and consulting company and said, we need someone to help grow our business. Would you be interested? So off I went, there. So,
Can I just ask, was there any element, I didn't hear it through the story. Was there any element of doubt, fear, or was it just straight up, I'm blazing a trail, I'm gonna go figure it out, full of courage and just doing it?
always fear is what probably drives me of not being successful.
Really?
So
Good.
I wouldn't say terrifying in the sense of where I was like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's out of my comfort zone. It was more of like, I need to make money. How do I do it? And what's the best way to do it? Right. And I'm gonna rely on myself to do it, not on anyone else. So I guess I would say that's probably what's always driven me. I grew up in a blue collar family. My parents were always worried about money. Always, always, always. And I just never wanted to be worried about it.
Yeah.
I always wanted to, feel comfortable financially. So that's probably what drove me. But I also loved it was very natural to work with people and talk to people and understand what they're doing and ask questions. And so that was fun. And I had this unique ability to like make connections between people and say, "Oh, you might be really good here. Let me call them and see if that could work out." And just really understanding, what drives people as well. But I'm naturally curious by people,
Yes.
and getting to know them. So I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and that is the superpower that you've been able to capitalize on, of just
Yeah.
being a social girl, being able to connect with people, and that learn and be curious. I mean, I just, you have such a strong muscle for it, of just being curious, asking questions. And so now you go from the IT part and you jump and go into it sounds like almost like a boutique consulting
Yes.
firm, and helping it actually grow the business. So tell us more about that jump.
Yeah. So they were affiliated with an accounting firm. It was called ProNexus. They were affiliated with an accounting firm called the Bonadio Group, which is very highly represented. And it was funny. I had to interview with Tom Bonadio, who is a big deal here in Rochester, New York. So I had to interview with him. And he was so kind and like down to earth. I was like, oh, I hope I did okay. And I think he liked me because I got the job. And when I started, it was funny. I had access to their systems, and I'm like, oh boy, like they're 6 months old. They only have 15 people out on billing, like not a lot. And I also respected them. I knew that they were good at what they did, and that they had built a business before. So I thought, okay, I got to prove myself. And I told them again, another mistake I made. So hopefully people will learn from this. As I told them, I didn't want to be a partner right away, because I had just had my son, who was, 6 months old at the time, and I'm like, I don't want to feel like I have to work, 70 hours a week. My problem is I do that anyways. Like I'm just like that was so dumb. Poor Parker. And so was, oh, I'll work Saturdays, sure, so but it was again great experience. I got to work with motivated, energetic individuals that wanted to build something. And wanted to build something and got to help them. And I was there for 8 years. I made partner. I did decide to be partner later on. But of course, you can't negotiate as much when it's bigger, when it's bigger. But which rightfully so, I get it. But made partner there, and really helped grow them. And we opened locations in Detroit and in Grand Rapids, and then New York City, which didn't work out. But the Detroit and Grand Rapids worked out well. So got to open up, offices. We grew our staff. By the time I left, it was 86 employees.
My
And so, and that was during COVID. So really, got to help learn and grow a business. And again, it was like working with, motivated, smart people that let me try and learn on the job, which was so great, to do. So, and, we really worked like partners. If there was a problem, we solved it together, and there was no fear about solving that together. Right. So I so grateful to have them in my life because I was able to, you know, like I said, be able to learn without fear,
yes.
work without fear, be authentic. If I'm having a bad day, we got through it together. And it was just, I'm very grateful for that. So great experience. with doing that job too.
Yeah, whenever we talk about extraordinary unlocked and really unlocking our extraordinary, it's never in a vacuum. I don't think there's one person, one guest that's been on these shows that have said, "Well, I just did it myself." Like, I didn't have anyone's help. I didn't no one opened a door for me, nobody gave me a lift up, but throughout every story, there's so much community and support, and that's what I'm hearing ring true through every situation, every career pivot, is that people said, "Kate, we believe in you. We want to support you. Let's learn, let's grow." And wow, did you spread your wings and just continue to just find new nooks and crannies and new extraordinary in yourself and doing it. And I'm just so amazed to hear that. And so after you go to the boutique, you grow it from 3 people, I don't know how small it was, to 86 people during
Yeah,
COVID, where you can't even be in person. And then what
no.
happens next?
So I was luckily, gratefully recruited by a gentleman called John Rizzo. His name is John Rizzo, and he owned a boutique accounting firm that was a spinoff. He used to work at Bonadio, left, started his own firm, and it was called RDG and Partners. And he had called me and said, would you ever want to work together? Or I think it was a text message actually, because we had cell phones then. And said, for the last 5 years. Would you ever want to work together? And I had had my eye on that firm because I felt like they were entrepreneurial. Like, I liked the branding that they were putting out there. I felt like for accountants, they were, entrepreneurs. And that was one of the things I really admired about Tom Bonadio is he just wasn't an accountant. He owned several businesses, he was making things happen outside of the accounting world. He was a business person, not just an accountant. And so I said to him, originally he wanted me to, kind of do what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm not going to compete with these guys because I have a good relationship with them. But I said, I am open to working with you. And I said, and here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm not good at. Here's what I like to do. And here's what I hate to do. And I said, if you've got something, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But I do agree that I like your firm and I like you and I'm open to working with you. So he came back and he said, okay, I've got this payroll company that I started but needs oversight. And he's like, and I have a wealth management team that I think could use some help. Of course, I knew nothing about wealth management too. Let's just be honest. And then
Full circle moment though, because these are the people
I
bringing.
first thought,
And you're like, "You know what? I'm never going to wealth management. Please don't I don't wanna go work for you." And now
"Wait,
here we are.
look where I am." So I know. And then he's like, and then I need someone to start an insurance agency, health insurance. I feel like that would be a great opportunity for us. And so I'm like, I don't know anything about health insurance either. Let me do some research. So I'm like, wait a second, the decision makers are all the same decision makers that I work with at my other job, and I'm not competing. So I thought I already have relationships at this level. And I had gone through a payroll transformation at Pronexus where I felt like it was terrible. It just felt like my salespeople were so great and the experience was not great. So I'm like, well, if I could solve this problem for like the small to mid-sized business, I wouldn't have to sell on price. I could sell on value and provide quality service. And, I probably could get some market share here. And maybe if I solved a payroll problem, they'd give me their benefits. So I had a partner there. I ended up saying yes. And I also was an opportunity for me to get more equity too. So that was the one thing that I felt like I deserved. So I went there and I hadn't met any of the other partners. I mean, except for one. And so I was like, okay, here goes. And so I said, would invest in myself, put money in and said, I got to make this thing profitable quick.
Yep.
So got licensed. I did that nights and weekends while I was at Pronexus.
Oh my
Since, yeah, and then, which that was interesting, and then, said, "Okay, let's do this. Let's start this company." Um, you know, through that, we were profitable in a year. We did an acquisition, had some unique experience where you're also working with 6 partners, right? Where it's not as that can be challenging. And then, but it was entrepreneurial. So I was able to, watch it and grow. And then the wealth management business, I'll touch on that real quick, was, I didn't know anything about it. So I didn't know what it was like. I didn't know that you could get commission on products. I didn't know any of that stuff. So while we had managed that, we actually transitioned to an RIA in 2023. So about to late 2023. So
What is
almost,
an RAA? Sorry, I'm not in the.
I know, so it's a registered investment advisor. And so what that means is, so you can be part of a broker dealer or you can manage assets yourself. So a broker dealer, you don't really own the assets. Uh, whoever does, whoever the broker dealer owns it and the financial advisor owns it. Now, if you're a financial advisor, you could take those assets and move around, but you have to get all your clients to sign off on it. As an RIA, you actually own the assets. The company owns the assets, not the individuals. So, in addition to that, you are a true fiduciary. So you are monitored by the SEC. So you are required to do what is right for your client and what is best for your client, not what's best for anyone else. And that was really the client service I always like to provide. So we ended up transitioning to an RIA, and I was a big part of that process, along with our financial advisor. Her name's Amy Ryan. She's still with us. And Mark Armbruster, who's our portfolio advisor. So that was fun. So I did that while I was there. And then on the payroll and benefits and HR business, we tried different business models to make ourselves more profitable. So, we quickly learned to save, to keep clients, and we could charge more money for the payroll if we provided good service. The clients were like, I don't care, just help me.
Right. Yeah.
And then on the benefits side, we provide a good service with there. And honestly, in the benefits business, if you're small business, you don't get a lot of attention by your benefits consultant. So it was pretty easy to get different clients that way, and provide really good service. And then we also started an HR practice because a lot of these small businesses, they get all these notices, you're a business owner, you're like, I don't even know what this means.
Yeah. Right.
And so we started providing services there. We did handbooks and general HR help and that sort of thing. So that added a higher margin business to the
Yeah.
portfolio that allowed us to become profitable. Um, we did that, and then we sold the accounting firm. And I was going to say, my last year while I was there. Sorry, this is a lot. I did a
Oh
lot while I
no,
was
no. This is
for
it's
five
so
years. It's like I'm like Joyce on scatterbrain. But I moved into a business development role, and I supported John Rizzo with acquisitions for the accounting firm and then I also did some business development and brought in some bigger clients and managed firms on the accounting side, which filled my bucket of learning because I was not a tax expert. I was learning how to be a tax expert. It was fun. So, and then we sold in January. So here I am. Now I'm like, should I have not capitalized? Should I not have changed so many different things? Do people think I'm all over the place? I mean, I don't know, but
no.
it's my gift, I think.
But I think that wealth of experience, no pun intended, truly, but really that whole journey of experiences has culminated so that you not only have a good amount of understanding and capability, but you've got this voracious learning muscle that will, like you just said, well, I'm not a tax expert, but I'm learning. Most people will say, I'm not a tax expert, period. I
Yeah.
don't know who I'm gonna go hire to go do that thing, but you are diving deep into it, and I hope people are listening here because, Kate, most people just say, "Well, I want a linear trajectory or do I don't wanna veer off the path too bad." Kate, I don't know if you even had a path in mind because this was straight up trailblazing from an accountant to now a partner in a I don't think it's only wealth management. It sounds like you all run multiple businesses and
Yes.
you partner in that business. And that is absolutely tremendous. And I hope folks that are listening, you're very, and I'm sure you really know, not many people may know your entire career story because
Yes.
catching you in that moment is like, oh, Kate is this person. She must have just showed up this way. But it was multiple reinventions and never feeling like you're cornered or had to compromise. Because I love it that even throughout, and I've heard this from other women too, their family was the cornerstone, and they weren't going to just say, my career is everything and I'm going scorched earth on it. So y'all just take a back seat and figure it was you having them, nursing them, and doing phone calls, telling someone, I don't want to be a partner. I just had a baby. And you're like, oh, what did I just shoot myself in the foot? But it still ended up in, and now you're at the point where you got a daughter graduating high school, a son graduating eighth grade, and the fruits of your labor. And you had a husband the entire time that in the background must have been like, Kate, what are you doing now?
He's been my biggest supporter, honestly. it's funny. I mean, he has a career. He works at Samsung. He's a sales director. So he's had to travel, throughout. And, especially the last 5 years, he wasn't traveling as much. And he was like, do what you got to do. So he really picked up the slack, which I'm so grateful for. And now, the last 4 months, it's nice. I'm enjoying my time with my family. I clean my house. I mean, it sounds silly, but like I'm grateful to be able to clean my house and grateful to get my laundry done and folded and grateful that I can make dinner and even eat dinner. So it's been a nice transition to do it. And then you've got this wealth business to grow with my partner. But I laughed. She goes, "You're so smart. I had no idea you were so smart." And I'm like, "Really? Do I just come across like I'm not?" You know. So we laugh a lot because we had to get licensed for this too.
Yeah.
In January. Um, it's been yeah, so it's been fun, and I would say this is where I did have a little bit of doubt, being transparent with you, is like, am I cut out for financial planning? I'm like, am I qualified to do this? And then I'm like, wait a second, I've been financial planning for businesses my whole career. I've had to, have a plan or future and how are we going to make money and how is this money going to sustain? And my
Yeah.
accounting background brought me to this my whole life. I'm like, so planning for individuals, is actually very transferable and kind of easier. We've got a great sub advisor that does our trading, but um, so I'm not trading stocks. Let's be fully honest. I'm not doing the trades, but just to help people understand where they are financially, what
Yeah.
to do if they sell their business. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And right now that's happening everywhere. So that's been fun to learn, and I'm gaining more confidence there. And especially as you're out talking to people, it's like, okay, I mean, I have a team here that can support me, but I believe in myself a little bit more. And then I started Path Advisory really
Oh my gosh, I
because
forgot about path advisory. Like the 1,000 things I'm doing, I've also got a path advisory.
well, it's brand new, it's brand new, and really I thought people know me for recruiting. So and I don't and I was gonna say the other piece of it is I'm at a point now that where I'm not working for somebody, so I don't have to be working on 12 deals at once. I can work at one on one at once and do a really good job. And so, that feels good too. And I thought, okay, well, this will be something I can do, to help people and help my clients that I've worked with in the past, that want a really good recruiter. And then also consulting, right? So like help me grow your business. So that's kind of like I'm here. There's a lot of different things I can help you with.
Yeah.
Let's talk. you know, um, is really is really where I'm at with that. So, but really focused on the RA right now. So
That's Kate, absolutely tremendous. And I think about I don't know if you hear the news, but so many people say, "Oh, college grads don't have opportunities, AI, all of that." And you have lived through so many brutal markets and reinvented yourself. And so I would love for you to just speak to somebody that feels stuck. They've been doing the accounting thing or even any of the other businesses that you've had before, and they've just done it for so long and they just almost feel hopeless. Like, I gotta
yeah,
do it. I gotta suffer through this. What advice would you give to them feeling that way?
I guess I would say dig deep
Tell
and
me
like
more. What's that mean?
think about what you're good at and what your superpowers are, right? Like think about and then how do you capitalize that into a different career, right? Like one of the things that, I would say that I am good at is finding that niche where nobody else seems to be doing it and I can do it. So I'd say dig deep and think about that. I would say like I have this one, I actually had met with this one accountant I used to work with last night and he's got such a personality. He's like, I just love getting in front of clients. And I'm like, that's so great. That's unusual.
Yes.
Work towards partner or start your own business, right? It's like take that being an accountant and being able to talk to people and like loving that is very unusual.
Yes.
Wanting to solve client problems, very unusual. Most accountants just want to like sit at their computer and do things. Now, and if you're an accountant that wants to just sit at your computer and do things, get really good at tax, like find a way to be really good at it because that expertise is so hard to find. So, think about who you are and then utilize that skill set to bring you to the next step. So I guess I would say dig deep, figure out who you are, think about it, and then talk to people and say, what do you think about this? And then find a way to capitalize, right? Go to tax seminars, get better. So I guess I would say if it's that, you know, everybody has a unique skill set.
That's
Some
right.
people are great at managing people. You need somebody to manage people. You can't be out there client facing doing this all the time and not have somebody that's really good at managing and developing people. Otherwise, your business isn't going anywhere. You know, you can only get to a certain spot, but if you don't have people that can do the work, then you're never going to scale, right? So and people think like you've really got to put the right people around you that also offset your weaknesses
Hmm.
and let them do the job. Well, too, which is hard. But yeah, yeah. So I guess everybody's got a superpower. It's funny, I was talking to somebody else yesterday, and he's like, so good at managing people. I'm like, well, and the team loves them. I'm like, okay, well, that's your superpower, right? Like maybe not everyone's going to bring in business, but if people can lead and manage a team, like that is so important. And I think being a good business owner and leader and recognizing that is just going to make you better.
Tremendous. Kate, it's been a joy to have you on here and being able to share your career story and tremendous extraordinaires. You heard something very special, and that word reinvention is powerful. And even what Kate recommended as advice, really dig deep. Get curious about what your superpowers are because everybody's got one. And she gave you a great case studies, three of them at least, in that short amount of advice. So, Kate, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Kate Kenny, frequently checking my messages. Um, definitely, reach out via LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So, please, feel free to reach out or DM me. I'm happy to talk. Well, I like to give back, so that's really what I like to do.
I love that. All right. Well, we got to our lightning round,
Oh, I can't wait for the lightning round.
and here we go. We got three questions here. All right. I always ask a food related question. So, Kate, when it gets super cold in New York, upstate New York, where you're at, or Rochester, what's your go to comfort food?
Pasta.
Pasta. Is there a particular pasta with a particular sauce or just
No,
any?
no particular, any pasta. And I love coming up with recipes with my son. That's what we do together is we cook. So I love coming up with recipes with my son and then we cook together. So yes, I love to cook pasta for my family. And I'm not Italian. And maybe but
Oh,
I
really?
grew up in my town, everyone was Italian. So that's what we
Oh,
did.
oh,
That feels good to be around family and cook and pasta reminds me of comfort food and
do
yeah.
you make homemade pasta?
Well, I don't make the pasta homemade, but I do buy good pasta. I don't buy, the store brand, but I make all my sauce and everything homemade. Anytime I'm making something, I cook it. I make it homemade.
That sounds delicious. Number 2, what is a hobby that you've got outside of lacrosse? Because I know that your daughter plays a lot of lacrosse, so that's probably hobby number 1, but hobby number 2, what would you say that is?
I like to work out. So clearly I have a lot of energy. So if I could you imagine how annoying I would be if I didn't work out in the morning? So yes, I work out, I run or I walk or I lift weights. So I would say and my son plays hockey, so it's hockey and lacrosse. I do both. But I would say so that's probably my number third, but I make sure I get either a walk or a run or a workout in every day. And it really just it allows me to think and balance and it's how I start my morning every day.
I love that. Thank you, Kate. That's so funny. You look at how much energy I've got now. Imagine if I didn't work out. Okay,
Yeah.
next level.
I went for a run this morning. So yes, yes, yeah.
Last question is, when went to upstate New York, I was shocked at how different it is in New York City because I'd never been there before. So the moment you leave New York City, it's quiet, it's beautiful. What is your favorite part about living in Rochester?
Change in seasons. So, I live in Pittsford, so actually in community. I would say change in seasons and community, but I think that everybody's got community in one way or another. But, it is so I'm always ready for summer. I'm dying for summer by the time summer comes. I'm always like today, yes, Monday it was 90, today it was 50. Say it's 50 or
I know.
68. So it's like, that's you live in Chicago. It's similar. And I would say by the time summer happens, I'm so hot. I'm tired of hot. And we do all of our socializing in the summer because it's nice out. So I'm dying for fall by the time summer's over because I'm like, "Oh, I'm tired. I just wanna put a pair of sweatpants on," and, eat comfort food, and then by the time fall happens, I'm like, "Oh, it'd be so pretty if it snowed out for Christmas." So I like the change in seasons. It's probably my favorite thing, and I do think in upstate New York, particularly in my town where I live, there's a lot of towns around here that are like this. We have a great sense of community. I'm so grateful for the community we've made through sports and school, and, my kids are around great kids, and, they're, learning how to be great kids through other kids, and especially with a daughter graduating, as you know, with your son graduating,
Yes.
you are so grateful and you reflect on things and you're like, "Oh, thank goodness for this family and thank goodness for this family." And, been very fortunate, my kids have had good people to be around that have looked out for them.
Thank you so much, Kate, for being on the podcast. Extraordinary as you heard a special career today, and she ain't through yet. I'm sure there's going to be some more things coming down
Brace
the.
yourself.
But thank you so much, Kate. Really appreciate you for being here. All right, y'all. We'll hear you next. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.